Right guys, when I started producing, it took so long for me to filter through all of the pointless tutorials on YouTube. So in this video, I'm going to be giving myself 3 days to break down and show you the best techniques for you guys to start getting major placements. So in the 3 days, we're going over the best way to make melodies with no music theory, understanding drum sounds, drum bounces, and really making your 808s hit, and going through the best mix and mastering tips for your beats to sound professional. And I promise you, wait until the end because I'm going to be showing you a major secret tip. Day 1. FL comes packed with so many tools that you can really utilize, and one that I still use to this day is scale highlighting. If you've ever struggled with melodies and don't know a thing about music theory, this tool is a lifesaver. Trust me, if that's you, then you want to keep on watching. Right, let me show you these game-changing tools. What I'm going to do straight away is just change the BPM. Let's go to 165. I'm going to open up Labs. And the reason I'm going to open up Labs is because it's got one of my favorite piano sounds in. And if you understand the sound pretty well, you pretty much can build good chords and a good top line on, and then you can switch it out for any sound and know it will sound good. So I'm going to open up the piano roll, and this is literally game-changing. If you right-click the music sign at the top, you've got all of the notes and all of the scales you could ever ask for. So let's change it to E minor, and I've already got minor natural selected. And the white notes, all of these notes are in the scale of E minor. The black ones are not. Let's just start off with some basic chords. And a trick for chords, every other note makes a good chord. There you go. Brilliant. Let's put these up an octave and this all down an octave. Let's copy that over. So cool. Now we've got the chords. I'm just going to copy the bass notes down an octave just to add some depth. Right, so now let's try and find a top line. And if you don't know much about top lines or anything, if you have got the scale highlighted in the right key, stick with this thing that I've always done, and it is press and play. Place a note. Sounds good. Let's roll with it. Or if you want to go up, just go until you feel like it sounds good or the idea you're humming in your head. You see how that doesn't sound right? Move it up. Perfect. Nice. I mean, that sounds perfect. Right, now we've got the chords and the melody. We pretty much can change this sound to whatever we want. So I'm going to open up a kit that I'm working on. If you want to get your hands on these sounds, early access, I've got a kit that's linked in the description that has solely these sounds and these sounds only for you to get your hands on today. So before the kit's out, you'll get your hands on these sounds. And I'm just going to open up the keys tab. Let's open up this sound and see what it sounds like. Let's copy the chords. And one thing you have to do with one shot is basically bring the attack and hold down. What I'm going to do is just bring up the sustain and the release. Bring up the attack just a bit and the tension up, down a bit. Oh my God, with the piano, that sounds insane. Wait, what? Okay, cool. Nah, this... What? Let's bring up the lows. Add some reverb to that. Right, so I've changed the main piano sound to an omnisphere piano sound. I like this. I like this. Let's add some effects to it. So now we've got a melody and a top line and even a layer, which we didn't even mean to do. I'm going to add a bass in. I'm going to get it from one of my bass one shots in my kit that's soon to come out. Let's even use the number 1. Perfect, that fits in very well. And in fact, I'm going to get a vocal in. Right, so what I'm going to do is, in fact, just move the BPM up to 170 so it matches. And we're in G minor and the melody's in E minor. So we're going to pitch this down. So 1, 2, 3, down 3. The vocal needs to go 1, 2, 3. So then we're all in the same key. Right, let's hear this. I'm just going to take some of the lows out straight away. Ooh, man, this sounds insane. And the last thing I'm going to add is I'm just going to add a guitar lick at the end. This one, I like this one. And we're in E minor, so we need to put this up 2 so it's in key. I'm just going to put this on the end of the bar, so like this. And let me pitch that down. Mate, this is insane. Right, I personally think the melody needs nothing else. I don't want to overcomplicate it. So tomorrow I'm going to be breaking down the best way to add drums to a melody like this. Carry on watching this video because the drums are going to completely change this melody into something crazy. Right, I'll see you in day 2. Day 2. Right, so today is about drums in the 808s. One thing I really used to struggle with was actually getting my 808s to sit in tune with a melody. It used to throw all my beats off until I learned this one trick that completely saved my life. Trust me, this tip is a total game changer. You're gonna have to stay locked in to see the source. Right, so let's get straight into it. The only kit I'm gonna be using in this video is the Blueprint multi-kit, and that's linked in the description and it's completely free. So the first sound I normally start with is a clap. Let's use the crisp one. And a clap pattern is pretty much the same in most beats. So it's halfway between each of these bars, 1 and 2. And I'm just going to repeat that to bar 8. So ends here. So having that clap there already, you kind of get the basic bounce. So the next sound I normally go with is a hi-hat. So I'm just going to use the go-to hi-hat. And one thing I struggled with at the start was basically finding a good hi-hat pattern. And one of the most common hi-hat patterns across all tracks is the 2-step hi-hat pattern. So the quickest way to do that is if you right-click your hi-hat and just press 2-step. But however, if you want something a bit more bouncy and you don't really know how to add bouncy hi-hats, I've got hi-hat midis in this kit and you can just drag them in. Just adds bounce and you've done nothing except drag a MIDI. Right, so I've used the hi-hat MIDI 2 in this. And like that, it's just added that extra bounce. So pretty much you've got the fundamentals to the bounce of the beat now. So it's basically filling in the pockets with open hats, snares, rims, perks, anything like that. And then afterwards, that's when I bring in the 808. So I normally just start with open hats when it comes to filling in these pockets. And my favorite open hat is the Sony open hat. And I'm just going to place that on the first hit to start with. And something I like doing with my open hats is pitching them down a little bit. So when the 808 hits with it, it sounds really cool. We'll go even lower. Right, I'm going to open up a rim. I'm going to show you something really cool that I've been doing with them. So basically on the first clap hit of each 4 bars, I'll have it hit with this with a clap. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to the mixer and I'm going to add reverb to it. Just bring up the low cut. Bring down the dry, bring up the decay, and I'm just going to have it sitting really low in the mix. So it just adds like this tail of reverb. Ready? I don't know, it just sounds really cool on these type of beats. Right, I'm going to open up a snare. I'm going to go to the go-to snare from the Blueprint kit. Ooh. Right, so we've got the fundamentals to a beat now. I don't really like adding loads of sounds because I feel like having space for the artist is the most important part. So now all I'm going to add is an 808 and kick. And I know a lot of people do struggle when it comes to keying their 808s. So if you make your own melody, it is pretty simple. All you have to do is follow the root notes to the melody, being these low notes here. So the 808 would go C, D, E, G, C, D, E, G. However, if you're using loops, it's a bit more difficult. So I'm going to show you how to do it if you were using loops. Right, so we've got the melody we made in loop format. You can hear the bass in the melody. So what I would do is I'd send it to a mixer, open up an EQ, and I would take out all of the high end. So it's just the bass. And what I would do now is open up an 808, and I normally always start on C. So now you'll be able to hear if the 808 matches with the bass of the loop, which that note does. But to give you an example of where it might not is if I was to put this note to E, it just sounds very messy. See, that's off. If I bring it down 1, yeah, that sounds perfect, but I need to cut that 808 so the notes don't flow into each other. Right, I can hear the note goes up there, so let's start on E and just pitch it up each note. Right, not right, not right, not right. Yeah, perfect. So let's copy that over. So that's the root notes. But there's also another way you can do this. So if you just go to the loop, you can go to edit sample and you can go to if you right click and go to regions and detect pitch regions, you basically can see the notes, which is saying C, D, E, G. And let's see the bass notes of the 808. C, D, E, G. So that sometimes is 99% accurate, but is not always accurate. So you can always do it the manual way. Right, so what I'm going to do with the 808s now is I'm just going to have them quite spacey, but also bouncy. So I don't know if you can tell, but the 808 just sounds really flat and very messy. And one thing the pros do to get that 808 punching and sounding so clean is adding one thing to the master, and that's a soft clipper. If we add a fruity soft clipper, open it and don't change a thing, the 808 will sound 10 times better. Hear this. Mate, the difference. That 808 sounds so clean. Right, and the last drum sound I'm going to bring in is a kick, just to layer over the 808. I feel like we've lost the piano, so I'm just going to turn up the piano a bit. That's pretty much it for the drums. I'm not going to lie. At this point, I wouldn't add anything else. I do think something's missing, and that 4 normally is an artist. So once you get an artist on this, it would sound 10 times different. But having enough space for the artist is very key, and a lot of producers forget about that. Right, so the only thing left to do is mix and master the beat. So I'll see you in day 3 when I show you the best ways. Keep on watching. Day 3, the final stretch. And it's probably the most overlooked part of the beat making process. That's mix and mastering. The mastering's probably the most easiest part, but when it comes to the mixing, that's where the magic happens. The right mix can take your beat from sounding mid to a professional standard. This is what separates the amateurs from the pros. Let's lock in and level up. Let's get it. Right, so let's convert this beat from sounding a 5 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is I've sent all of the sounds to the mixer. I'm just going to mute all of the drums so we can just basically mix in the melody. I'm going to start with the piano, just solo that. Just make sure the lows are taken out. because you don't want the lows to clash with either the bass or the 808. I'm going to bring in the pad. And one thing I like doing with my pads is using this little knob. It's called the stereo separation. Just bring it to left and it just makes it sound wider. Right, I'm going to mix in the vocals now. And one tip when it comes to mixing vocals is not having them too loud. Because if you have them too loud, when an artist comes on the beat, it might clash and it might just be a lot going on. So I want it to basically be a background vocal. So something sitting far in the back in the mix. So I'm just going to have it quite low and quite eerie with some reverb. Right, let's bring in the guitar. So I'm just going to unmute that. One thing I'm going to add on it is actually Pancake. That's a good idea. It's a free VST. And basically what it does is it pans the sound from left to right automatically. So I'm just going to turn the mix down just a bit. Let's go to around about 60%. And you'll hear, let me solo it and you'll hear it. Especially if you're using headphones, you're going to hear it go from left to right. So now we've mixed the piano, pad, vocal, and guitar. The last thing to do is mix the bass in. And I just like the bass sitting just below the piano. Perfect. So for the melody, that sounds perfect. That sounds very well mixed. So now it's going on to the drums. And just before I start mixing the drums, the first thing I'm going to do is on the master channel, I'm going to open up a parametric EQ, not the number 2, just the number 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to raise the high end. So it's more of a slope. And this basically adds crunch to the drums, if I'm honest. So the first thing I start with is a clap and hi-hat. Yeah, so sometimes when I add the EQ on, the hi-hat sounds really piercing. So I'm just going to bring that down a bit. Yeah, perfect. Before we go any further, I'm going to unmute the rim. I mean, that sounds pretty much perfect, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, let me just put up the reverb so you can see the settings I have on that. So now I'm going to unmute the open hat, the go-to snare, and let's just mix those in. I'm going to pan the open hat to the left a little bit. Pan it to the right, so it's just got its own pockets. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And with that guitar panning, it kind of like, again, opens up more pockets. That's the best thing about the panning tool. The last and literally the most important, the kick in 808. This is like, if you can get the mix right on a kick in 808, it will literally change your life. Right, I'm going to mute the bass to start with because I don't want anything clashing. I'm going to unmute the 808, and I'm not going to lie. Turn it up and bring it down, that's all I do, till it sits perfectly. Just turn down the open hat a little bit. Perfect. That's clipping perfectly. And if we didn't have the soft clipper, listen. Just sounds like a mess. So with the 808 normally, I just like it clipping in with the open hat. And sometimes the hi-hat depending on how short the 808 is. Yes, that's perfect. So the last sound I'm going to unmute is the kick. And before we do anything, all you need to do, I can do this without hearing it. Boost it. And you can basically sidechain it to the 808. So right click the arrow at the bottom, go sidechain to this track, go on the 808, go to limiter, go to compressor, bring down the threshold, bring up the knee and ratio, bring down the release, and here you click sidechain. So when the kick hits, the 808 ducks, so it just adds another punch. Oh mate, that just sounds insane. The only thing is I can hear air in the kick because again we've raised the high end on the master, so I'm just going to bring out the high end a little bit. Perfect. Oh man, what? Oh, this is crazy. That's pretty much it when it comes to mixing a melody. You don't, I mean, number 1 rule, don't overthink it. If you think it sounds right, leave it there. But it's okay to change things too. If you think when you're bringing in a sound, okay, that's perfect, but then you bring in another sound, you're actually like, I want to make more space for that. You can remix sounds, that's totally fine. But make sure then them drums just sound insane, because 9 times out of 10 when an artist is in a studio, they hear an insane melody but dead drums, they're not using that beat. So really focus on the drums whatever you do. And mastering, that's all I do. Soft clipper, I pretty much add the soft clipper just before I bring in the 808, or when I literally start the beat. After that, you just add the EQ with a little slope at the top, just add some crunch to the drums. But yeah, that's it. That is literally it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's been so fun to make. Over the last 3 days, I've really gone back to the basics and tried to fill this video with so many techniques, tips and secrets. If you guys are looking for all of the sounds that I made in this video, there's a link in the description. It's called 3 days. All of the sounds I used in this video, every melody, every MIDI is going to be in the kit. So go in the description and download it today. If you guys want to see any other type of videos, make sure you let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.